And we are back. Welcome to my predictions for Matchday 2 of the Champions League, the Tuesday edition. After what was possibly the most controversial Premier League weekend ever, we now turn our attention to the European week where, well, there's never been any controversy in Europe, has there? It's been a crazy, crazy weekend, but at least we can now turn our attention to something a little bit different. We do, of course, have our Premier League fixture coming tonight as well in Luton, Burnley, so stick around to the end of today's video to make sure you see my prediction for that. And I know I keep going on about it, but thank you for helping me reach my next YouTube milestone. We were on 850 going into Friday's predictions video. By Saturday morning, we were already at 900 subscribers, so thank you again for all your incredible support. This week could be the week we reach our target of 1,000. It could be you that is that lucky 1,000 subscriber. So if you haven't done so already, please do consider subscribing to the channel, because like I've just said, we will be doing more predictions throughout the week. We will have tomorrow's predictions for Wednesday's games, and then we'll have all the Europa League, Europa Conference on Thursday, and then of course back to the Premier League once again on Friday. So please do consider subscribing and drop a like on this video if you are enjoying these prediction series. Let's now look ahead to all of tonight's action in the Champions League and Premier League. And we start off with Group A, and we start off with Copenhagen taking on Bayern Munich. Now, Copenhagen had made a phenomenal start to the season and almost pulled off an incredible win away at Galatasaray in the opening fixture of this season's Champions League. However, at the weekend, they lost 2-0 at home to Midtjylland. Now, they did make some changes for this game, but you would still expect them to win that game. So they come into this game against Bayern a little bit off of form, but then so do Bayern, who of course drew 2-2 with Leipzig at the weekend, and against Manchester United a couple of weeks ago won narrowly 4-3 in what was probably the most bizarre game of the Champions League in round one. I don't want to sit here and say Copenhagen have a chance. I think that would be a little bit harsh on Bayern. I think Copenhagen are more than capable of pulling off something, but I think it would be unrealistic to say they have a chance. I'm going to go 3-1 to Bayern, but watch this space. I think Copenhagen are a good team. They certainly could pull off a draw, maybe, but I don't see it happening tonight. I'm going to go for 3-1 to Bayern. Second game of the night, unfortunately, comes around far too quickly for me because I do not want to talk about Manchester United against Galatasaray, but here we go. Obviously, United lost 1-0 at home to Crystal Palace at the weekend and really just didn't look like scoring at any real point in that game. Galatasaray, of course, have made a phenomenal start to their season. Haven't lost, I don't think, since August. Obviously came back from 2-0 down against Copenhagen in Matchday 1. And the problem I've got coming into this game is, given all the injuries Manchester United have got and the concerns around who's potentially even going to play in the starting lineup, I think Galatasaray will score. And I can't see Manchester United scoring more than one. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Obviously, I expect Manchester United to win. I demand as a Manchester United fan that we beat Galatasaray. But you got to look at Galatasaray's team, and they're basically a team of has-beens and would-be's. And I don't mean that with any disrespect to any of them, but when you see the likes of Mertens, Zaha, Torreira, and Ndombele, Ziyech, and then you got the youngsters coming through like Astagoglu and Adrioglu, the right back, they've got so many talented footballers in their squad. If Manchester United slack off at any point tonight, not only are they going to get punished in terms of they could potentially draw, but they're more than capable of losing to Galatasaray tonight with the quality that they've got. So huge, huge performance we need for Manchester United, because fail to win tonight and quite literally their whole season could be over at the start of October, because we'll be struggling to get to the Champions League group. And I reckon we're potentially already too far behind in the Premier League. So watch this space. On to Group B and on to the second of two Premier League sides in Champions League action tonight. It is Arsenal. They travel to Lens, who have made a poor start to the season, but in the last couple of games have started to turn it around. They got their first 2 wins of the season in the last 2 weekends in League 1. Arsenal, of course, have been playing some fantastic football. They did slip up in the North London derby, but then put in an incredible performance against Bournemouth at the weekend. I think on paper, this just is a game that Lens aren't good enough to win. As I said in their first game, if they still had Openda, if they still had Fofana, I think this would be a lot more interesting. But I think with this quality that Arsenal have got available to them, I think they're just going to be too much in the end. I'm going to go 2-0 to Arsenal, but who knows? We shall see. The other game in this group I think is a lot harder to call. We've got PSV taking on Sevilla. Now, of course, as we all know, Sevilla will be doing everything in their power to finish in third place so they can go into the Europa League and win that once again. Of course, I'm joking, but Sevilla again have made a very, very poor start to the season in terms of La Liga, but PSV haven't been at their absolute best either. So it's really tough to call. PSV obviously got smashed by Arsenal in the first Champions League game, and Sevilla narrowly pulled out a result against Lens. This is possibly the hardest one to call, considering how many games there are that are tough to call tonight. This really is possibly the hardest because form is really hard to gauge in this one. So when I'm unsure about a game like this, I just bottle it and go 2-1 to the home team because I think that probably is the most realistic result. But yeah, really think all three results are possible in this one. On to Group C, we start with Union Berlin taking on Braga. And again, two sides that have had very mixed form. Union Berlin have been scoring a lot of goals, but have been conceding a lot of goals in the Bundesliga. And Braga have pulled off some fairly good results so far this season in Portugal, but haven't quite hit the heights you would normally expect from a side that obviously has qualified for the Champions League this season. I'm going to go for 3-2 to Union. Like I say, that's sort of the pattern of both of these teams' games so far this season. They've both been scoring goals. They've both been conceding goals. I think it's just going to come down to who scores the most goals on the night. And I'm going to favour the home side once again. Plus, I think Union on paper are just about the better team. The other game in that group is arguably the main event of the night. It is Napoli taking on Real Madrid. And obviously the talk around Napoli has been about all the off-field drama, or should I say on-field relating to off-field drama around Osimhen and his willingness to play and getting subbed off. And it seems that they've sort of put that behind them this weekend, and obviously Napoli still have had a fantastic start to the season in terms of their Serie A results. Real Madrid as well have only lost one game so far this season, that away defeat to Atletico Madrid in the Madrid derby. So really, really tight to call this one. I think it's going to be a very entertaining game. I think it's going to be a very open game with a lot of quality players on show, and I can't split them. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I think this is going to be a really, really entertaining game, like I say. And it could just come down to one moment of brilliance from one of those players to split the difference. But for me, I just think this is going to be a draw, and I'm going to go for 2-2. On to Group D then. We start with Salzburg against Real Sociedad, two sides that have been performing very well themselves this season. Salzburg are the runaway leaders in the Austrian League as things stand at the moment, and pulled off an incredible 2-0 win away at Benfica in Matchday 1. Real Sociedad themselves have been playing fantastically well in La Liga, and of course were able to get the draw at home to Inter Milan in Matchday 1 themselves. So both sides come into this game with an awful lot of confidence, and both sides come into it in positions whereby they are actually defending very well as well. So it makes it a really tight one to call this one. I'm going to go 2-1 to Salzburg. I think they are more than capable of beating Sociedad. But again, really tough. Could go either way. I'm just leaning towards Salzburg just because they're probably the side with just about the most momentum right now. And finally, in terms of the Champions League for today, we have Inter Milan taking on Benfica. Again, this is probably one of the easier ones to call when you look at current form. Benfica haven't been at their absolute best so far this season. They did beat Porto at the weekend, which is a big result for them because they hadn't made the best of starts to their Portuguese league season. But Inter Milan have been absolutely fantastic in Serie A so far this season. They did have a slight slip up against Sassuolo a couple of weeks ago, but they put it right at the weekend. And obviously they did draw away at Sociedad in their opening fixture. So we'll be looking to bounce back with a win against Benfica tonight. And I'm going to go for 2-0 to Inter Milan in that. That is it in terms of Champions League predictions. As always, let me know down in the comments all of your thoughts ahead of tonight's Champions League games. But before we say goodbye, we do have that one remaining Premier League fixture from Game Week 7. It is Luton Town taking on Burnley in the battle of the two promoted sides. Now, obviously, Luton were able to get their first win of the season away at Everton at the weekend. Burnley did struggle in their game against Newcastle and fell to yet another defeat. So it's an opportunity for Vincent Kompany's side to get their first win of the Premier League season. In the games in the Championship last season, I can tell you that Burnley won 1-0 away at Luton, and it was 1-1 at Turf Moor. So it's a tough one, but I have to think that the way Luton have played in the last few matches, they've gradually improved match on match over the course of the Premier League season so far, and it is a must-win game for Luton at Kenilworth Road under the lights. I have to believe there's a slight bias towards my Luton family, that Luton are going to get the win, and I'm going to go for 2-0 to Luton Town. But we shall see. It's going to be a very interesting night of action, both in the Champions League and in the Premier League. As always, let me know all your thoughts down in the comments. And like I say, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I will see you at the same time tomorrow morning for my predictions for Wednesday's Champions League Matchday 2.